Welcome everybody, I'm Santiago Kneeland and this is The Divine Within, the invisible connection with God.
What if Jesus' mission was bigger than sacrifice and his cross was about love, not wrath? The Gospels tell the story. The Urantia Book expands it, making Jesus more human, more relatable, and more cosmic than ever. Jesus didn't leave with us a religion. He left with us a living spirit that still speaks to us today. In today's topic, I'm joined by Chris Lepine, a spiritual author, teacher of the Urantia Book, and host of the New Revelation of Jesus podcast. Chris has spent decades exploring the original pre-Christian teachings of Jesus, sharing insights that bridge faith, history, and living experience. Together, we'll explore redefining Jesus. The Gospels gave us a foundation, but the Urantia Book expands the story, making Jesus more relatable, more human, and more cosmic than ever. In this episode, we uncover his true mission, the deeper meaning of the cross, and the gift of the Spirit of Truth, a guide that's alive in us today. So welcome, Chris. It's a pleasure having you here on the podcast.
Thank you, Santiago. Good afternoon. I know it's morning here in Colorado. It's about, I think, a little after 7 a.m. as we tape this.
It's morning over there, almost afternoon over here, but that's the beauty about communications nowadays. We can be connected no matter the distance.
Absolutely.
Well, it's a pleasure to have you here, Chris. This topic of redefining Jesus, it's something that we've been talking about and trying to explain to people, the expanded history of Jesus. So first of all, let's talk a little bit of our source. Why are we making these claims and where do we take these claims from?
I think it's important to, and I'm assuming that the folks watching this are looking for different answers than what they've heard or different sources of truth. And like most people in the Western world, I was raised with a Christian tradition, right? We relied on the Bible, information there, and then maybe there are some extra books. And then there's historical records like Josephus. There are many, many other religions that refer to Jesus. So we've reached a point where this has been studied for hundreds and hundreds of years. And it's like we've squeezed everything we can out of what we have. And the meager drops that we're getting are not enough now. Things have changed radically in 2,000 years from when, Jesus lived and taught to now. It's radically changed and a lot has been lost. So the new source of this, if you have an open mind, of course, got to have an open mind to explore. We assume we do. But the news source was given to us in the early part of the 20th century. And it was put together in a book by a group of people in Chicago when it came through. There are books about this. I won't go into detail, but the name of the book that was published in 1955 is the Urantia Book. And this book claims to be a new revelation to help us at this time. A new revelation essentially written by angels who were with Jesus at the time. It took a lot of notes and they probably shot a lot of video. They have full records, but it's an absolute complete source.
This is pretty interesting, Chris. I think, like you said, a lot of us grew up in the Christian traditions and we, like myself, grew up in the Catholic religion. And there was a lot of, missing pieces when I was, in my childhood and then later young adulthood. And like you said, the Urantia Book kind of filled these pieces and it didn't contradict anything. That's what I really liked about the book.
No.
It didn't really say this didn't happen, this happened instead, but it explains those moments that we all know from the Gospels, from the four authors of the Gospels. And these are celestial authors. So it kind of filled those gaps. And I think this is what's really important. We have to fill these gaps, right?
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. It's kind of, let me put it this way. If you've never read the Urantia Book, but you didn't even know about it and you're sitting there, you're thinking, God, I would love to know, what was Jesus like as a child? Did he travel? Brothers and sisters? What did he think of the Romans? What was Nazareth like? All of those things. And that if someone gave you a source that you could trust, you would get those answers. And I guess what we're saying today is, hey, we think we found this, and open your mind. So if you could fill the gaps about what exactly did he teach, and what the Urantia Book does is it fills all the gaps and more And then it gives you a broader understanding of who Jesus was, his mission, which we'll get into later, but also who God is, you know, at the greatest depths. So that's, I mean, the Urantia book is 777 pages on the life of Jesus. And it's like you said, it's straightforward. It's simple language in part 4, and it's written for truth seekers, and it's absolutely clear. And you could take an incident like, let's say, I don't know, the Sermon on the Mount, and in the Bible, you've got about that much. Well, what if you were there and you recorded the whole thing? The Urantia book is going to give you dramatically more, and it really doesn't contradict it, like you said. It's everything you hoped it would be.
Yeah, yeah. It's so beautiful about what you're saying, and it's really the account of the angels, basically, these
Yes.
non-human beings that were there and that have the account. So we invite everybody that's watching this to go visit the Urantia Foundation website. You can watch, you can read there. I mean, it's public. You don't even have to buy the book. You can read it online. So. And diving in, Chris, now that you mentioned the source, I think it's very important that we redefine Jesus in the sense of his mission. A lot of what we know, or what the traditional mission of Jesus, as we know from Christianity, is that he came to die for the sins of the world, to rid us of the sins of the world. So what is your take on this, and what does the Urantia book tell us about his mission in that sense?
Well, I think Christianity got it wrong, totally wrong. So even if you just take the Bible, and I can tell you there are a lot of writers throughout history who have stated this, and especially modern Christians, especially progressive Christianity, rethinking this. So and I'll get into answer your question, but if you assume, everybody, that God is more amazing and loving than you can imagine, and is kind and just and fair, then the original sin does not exist. How could a baby be born with sin on its soul? That's just kind of a karma idea. That's weird. Jesus didn't teach it. Guess what? He didn't teach that. And he didn't teach that he was a blood sacrifice. So the whole idea behind this is, if you really believe in that, that means that the type of God you believe in is unfair and cruel and in some ways unforgiving. But the God we know, the God that Jesus taught about, is a loving divine parent, a loving heavenly father. Maybe you think of God as a mother, that's fine, but think of God as a loving, perfect divine parent, totally fair, completely kind. It's going to hold you accountable, but is not into punishment and unfairness. So it's if you strip that away, it gives us, I think, a clear idea of God, and can begin to bring some peace about how you're living your life.
That's interesting. And now that now you're mentioning that his purpose wasn't, like you said, a sacrifice, and from this wrathful God. And I think that one of the principal things that he did was to reveal God as a loving father. And I think that's really the fundamental change from a wrathful God that we know from the Old Testament to this loving father figure that he brings. So if he didn't come here to die for getting rid of our sins, what were his missions? What was his purpose on this earth?
It's really about trust. I'll answer the question. It's really about trust. If you can feel like today when you're listening, if you link into your spirit within, to your soul, you will begin to feel trust and peace and the confidence to open your mind. So why was he here? If he wasn't here as a blood sacrifice, right? Extremely primitive idea. I think of it. That doesn't make sense at all. Why was he here? It gets back, I think, to what you're saying before. And the most important relationship we can have is with God, the creator of the universe, our loving divine parent, our loving universal father. That's what it's all about. That's our universe journey and serving others. His mission was, number one, to really experience life as a human being.
Okay.
To live as we live, to walk a mile in our shoes so that he could better help us, so the Father could better know us, so that we could better know God. I mean, he brought man closer to God and gave a new revelation of God, but also gave a new revelation of man to God because he lived it. So the purpose Really, if we look at from a purely human standpoint, not just a cosmic, the purpose of his life, and I took notes on it because I don't want to get it wrong. I'm going to read a quotation from the Urantia
Yes,
book. I
please
don't
do
want to get
so.
this wrong at all, guys. You know,
No,
and
no.
again, you can get the Urantia book. It's like $15 US. It's cheap, big, but you can read it. So I am not, the expert of experts. This is my interpretation. I'm not here to tell you what to do, what to believe, or to judge you. We're all equal seekers. Okay, so why was he here? I have come into the world to reveal the Father and establish his kingdom. Number one. So it's as you said, a revelation of the Father.
Yeah.
Jesus is an incarnation of the Father. The way he lived his life, the way he behaved is the Father in the flesh, not the words. The words are not a revelation of the Father, what he did. Second thing, here's another quote. I have come into the world to proclaim spiritual liberty to the end that mortals may be empowered to live individual lives of originality and freedom before God. So dual purpose. Number one, to reveal the Father. Number two, to teach us how to enter into an optimal relationship with the Father and find joy, confidence, success, courage, all of that. Success,
Okay.
real success. Those are the two reasons he came. There are lots of benefits that come out of that. There are many benefits, and his whole method was to focus completely on doing the will of the Father and in maintaining unbroken contact, unbroken communion. And he did it. This is interesting. He did it as a human being. It's not like an impossible thing. And he didn't have full realization of who he was as a divine person until he was baptized. So this is not an impossible thing. So, but
That's
that's why I think that's really important.
and
A
I
new
think
revelation of man to man too.
yeah. I mean, you mentioned a lot of things, and let me just break some of these down. And one of the things that you said is to experience living as a mortal being, living a human, and I think that's very important because once you create your universe or you're a co-creator with God, and how can you judge the beings that you created? How can you really understand them and really feel them unless you become like them? And I think this is very important in Jesus's nature and who he is within the universe, that he had to complete this, and this was the last bestowal. That's what it's called, as a mortal creature, which gives him the sovereignty now to understand his creation and to be able to, in a way, judge it. I don't want to say judge it because he's not. We all judge ourselves, but in a way, he establishes the moral, religious, and ethical truths that we have to live by.
No, it makes total sense. Well, I think in human terms, think of this. Have you ever worked for a boss that has no idea, doesn't even know how to do what you do? I
Yeah,
have.
yeah, a lot.
So, but what is it like when you work for someone who has done your job? They can help you, they can guide you, they can be there. I mean, if I just described what I do, unless you did it yourself, you really wouldn't know. So he knows whereof he speaks now.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's important. That's
And
important. Living.
what an incredible kind thing to do, to go through this life like us.
And that's important. And you were saying, okay, he lived and he experienced this mortal life, but at the same time, he revealed the mortal life to God the Father. Through his experience, because God the Father is, all the way over there in heaven. He's a kind of in a central position. But through us and through this experience, through the unraveling of the universe, he experiences his creation. So that's beautiful. It's not only us understanding God, but God understanding us. I love that.
Yeah, it's pretty profound. But although God the Father is in a central location, I mean, and he's a person that you can talk to, really.
Yeah.
It has all the abilities we do, but there is also one of the greatest things in Jesus' teaching is that there is an actual piece of God the Father inside you. Your spirit, that's different than your soul. Your spirit helps your mind to grow your soul, to nourish your soul. So remember, I mean, even in the Bible, they talk about, Jesus said, my spirit and the Father's spirit. So it's a pretty profound, it's kind of, you're in cooperation with God, giving our individual lives are a continual revelation of humans to God, and God is revealing to each of us at the same time in our unique way. So again, Jesus lived a fully human life of revealing man to man and God to man and man to God. And we can do the same thing.
And
Not to
that's
his level,
yeah,
but
and
yeah,
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 never to
yeah.
a level. And that's the point I wanted to get to. You were saying that he had to go through the experience of not knowing that he was divine, of coming to this world as a baby, like any one of us comes to this world, not knowing anything, starting from zero. And I love that because it makes us more relatable. You know, he had to go through these instances of mortal life, even his
Mhm.
passion, which we're going to talk about later, you know, that he had to go through this horrible death and through a lot of tragedies throughout this life, as well as a lot of joyful moments. Experiencing that and basically sharing the same planet, you know, sharing the same existence with him. I mean, it's just when you think about it, it just, you know, blows my mind that we have God, or we have this part of God so close to us, you know?
Yeah, it's almost incomprehensible. It's amazing. And that's really that's the central part of his teaching is to remember. I mean, he taught focus on God. Don't focus on me. I mean, he lived an ideal human life. He gave us perfect teachings, and the teachings, his religion, he based it on the truths that the Father gave him. And then he formulated his own religion. So yeah, it's mind blowing to kind of think about that. And with, when you're just I mean, that was the secret of his unparalleled life was his communion with the Father. And that's the same thing we can do. And we can overcome any internal limitation of character, maturity, discipline, focus. And I will list something real briefly if I could.
Yeah, yeah, please do
I
so.
took a lot of notes before, but
No, yes, please
so,
share all that
so,
you want.
right. So he functioned in his function as a teacher, right? He was bringing us to the Father, and he liberated and inspired man's spiritual nature. He illuminated anyone who had a darkened human intellect, illuminated our mind. He healed our souls. He frees our mind from ancient age-old fears. And then as he went about in his ministry, he was helping people physically with, trying to heal themselves and just make a living in this world. So, yeah, pretty complete ministry.
A pretty complete ministry and very mundane. I think that's one of the things that we kind of, you know, this modern secular world, we kind of say, you know, we have to be more religious, more spiritual. Let's go to a monastery, or let's go to a hilltop and get lost there. But Jesus didn't do that. I mean, although he had some times of reflection and of introspection, he was engaging with the world, and I think that's really transcendental. You know, he didn't go and get enlightened apart from the world. He lived in the world, and that's where he became basically destroyed death as we know it. You know?
I love the point about being active. I think that's a central core of the religion of Jesus. A lot of religions or a lot of spiritual teachings really focus on escaping the world to reach the spiritual world, but it's the opposite. It is what he did. Complete embrace of what you're going through, not running away, but the total trust as a child in the Father that you can be energized, your mind can be transformed, your soul strengthened to face anything. Don't run away. And like you said, it was a balance of spiritual nourishment. He'd go off for hours and hours, sometimes days, but he came back and worked his tail off to
Yeah.
apply that. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah, that's true, and that's what I like about this new source of the dynamic part of Jesus, the practical way of talking to the Father and then being in communion with the Father. That's something that we can all take and we can all learn from. And just, I mean, let's close this segment on the before we move to the other one, which is pretty interesting. But I don't know if you want to point out anything else on this, on redefining Jesus before we move on to the next, which is the meaning of the cross.
Yeah. I think it's just that I encourage everybody listening to, if you have a hunger for more information about Jesus or a different understanding of Jesus, keep an open mind. Be, be one of those people, be part of that group of people who are progressive, open-minded, who have a dialogue. Be unafraid to challenge what you believe, and God will that God's going to hold you through this process and reveal more truth to you. Just trust God.
Definitely, definitely. That is so true. That trust that you can depend on God, and it's sometimes difficult to do because you're scared. But once you believe in that, and once you see the
Hmm.
power and the
Yeah.
miracles that happen when you do that, then everything changes.
Yeah, I do want to just share a brief personal
Sure,
anecdote
sure.
before we go into the next one, I think, which illustrates it. So, I was my parents were amazing parents, wonderful people, but one of the flaws was one of my parents overprotected me. One of my parents was always saying, "Are you okay? Do you think you can do it?" He babied me. So I had almost zero self-confidence. I didn't know what I wanted. I was afraid. When I had a challenge, I collapsed. I couldn't get things done. And the only thing that helped me was just sitting with the Father for a long, long time every day and getting energized. And what happened was, right, that list I read off before liberated my spiritual nature, illuminated my darkened mind, healed my soul. All the thoughts, all the negativity, all the fear, anxiety was completely obliterated. So I could start with this. So and that's what Jesus did every day. So and that's, and right now, I can think of many times when I encourage everybody, if you have some change you think is impossible or some situation you think is impossible, I'll talk to God.
Well, thanks, Chris, for that story. I think it really illustrates how when we put our faith in God and we let Him act in us, it definitely transforms us. So thank you for that.
Absolutely. Yep.
Now I want to get into the meaning of the cross. I mean, we've been discussing how the real mission of Jesus, and that He wasn't coming here as a sacrifice, as a blood sacrifice. But nevertheless, I think the cross does bear a meaning in Christianity. And I think that although that wasn't the purpose, it wasn't, God the Father sacrificing His Son, I think we can take a lot of wisdom, a lot of, things that we can take from the cross. So I want to just mention this real quick before we dive into this. But
Sure.
here's the meaning on the cross. The cross wasn't about appeasing wrath. It was about love, loyalty, and courage. Jesus faced injustice and sufferings not to pay a debt, but to prove that truth and love always win. Here's the real meaning of the cross and why it transforms lives today. Let's talk about this, Chris, and why is the sacrifice and the cross so relevant to us in our everyday struggle?
Yeah. And I think it's again going back and asking yourself, okay, because I don't want to take away from what people have. So let's assume you think that Jesus was a blood sacrifice. What He did was astounding anyway, right? An incredible level of love. We can agree on that, whether you disagree with me or not on other things. And that's again, the revelation of the Father. And what's the highest love that you can give anyone? To die for your friends. Guess what? Jesus died for His enemies. Let's start there. No matter what you think about what I said today, that's the incredible. So what is the real meaning of the death on the cross? Well, Jesus threatened a political structure. And the final straw was He threatened the finances of the Sadducees and the Pharisees by clearing, right, the temple of the money changers, commerce. So they were out. So why did He die on the cross? He threatened the human political and religious interest. That's why.
So relevant
So
today as well, you know?
absolutely. So what is think of the death on the cross, and this is something that's in, the Urantia book we talked about. Incredible write-up on this, but the real meaning of the death of the cross is the full revelation of the absolute fatherly love of God. That's what Jesus revealed. Remember, He is a revelation. The way He lived His life, the things He did, it's a revelation of the Father, not the words He said. He's not like quoting the Father. When you hear Jesus, you don't hear the Father. You hear Jesus' interpretation of the truth from the Father. So the cross is the full revelation of devotion and love of the
Okay.
Father. So that's unconditional. That's total forgiveness. That is giving you exactly what you need, when you need it, in the way you need it, where you need it for as long as you need it. God, it's God, it's a revelation of God's total willingness to help you, no matter what he has to go through or his sacrifices. That's
Okay,
incredible.
that's
So
interesting.
and
That
that was always, we have to understand, that love was always there from the earliest times of human beings through all the people in the Bible, always there. We have to remember, Jesus is a new revelation. If Jesus didn't come, you would still be able to have a spiritual experience and find salvation in the Father, in God. But what Jesus did was he made that way very clear, and he gave us a full revelation of God. That's what he did. He stripped away those things, as we said, as a teacher, and he experienced the life that we have. So that, the cross, it's an incredible revelation of the love that God gives us. And we know that crucifixion was a remarkably, excruciatingly painful death. It was designed to be that way. And yet he held himself. He didn't insult people. He worked
that's
on the
what's so
spiritual,
astounding.
yeah, the
That
spiritual
way he
part. Yeah.
retook it. That I think. I mean, what you're saying and his role, Jesus's role in what we were saying at the beginning of maintaining the will of the Father, and finally, the will of the Father is that all my creation, all even mortals, have free will, and I can't even my will, which is the first will, I believe, cannot interfere with your free will, and that's what Jesus ascribes to. He can't, even if he has all the power to free himself from his captors and avoid that death, he embraces it and he takes it full heartedly, and even in spite of knowing the pain that he was going to go through, he embraced it, and he transcended it. And we were talking about the faith. That sublime faith he had when he took his death is, I think, the most important part of everything.
I love that. Yeah. And that's, it's again, it's based on a spiritual relationship with the Father and you may think of God as a mother. That's fine. I'm not trying to rip away but Jesus taught about a father, not a man, but a God that takes the role of the best loving father you can think of. And the Urantia Book talks about God the Mother too, and God the Spirit. So, but Jesus taught God the Father, and it is really astounding, and it's based on what it gets back to the whole model of salvation. And I hope, am I jumping ahead? I don't think so, because we're
No,
going to talk
no,
about
no
Spirit
worry,
of
no
Truth.
worry.
I know later, but so what we've done here is we've talked about, okay, misconceptions about Jesus, who he was, why he was here, the mission. Okay, so now we know he's here to reveal the Father, experience this life, and give us his ideal teachings. But again, so if you look at his life, remember, we can experience God to our capacity, our capability, just as he did. And what's the gateway? Faith. Jesus said, all
Faith.
you need to open the door is faith. And what are the parts of that faith? There are two parts of the faith. You have to be sincere in wanting to know God, wanting to grow, sincerity, and the other one is truth, hunger.
Hmm.
I am sincere in wanting to know God. I'm hungry, and I'm hungry for the truth. Those are the two key components of faith. All that's needed is faith. But once you open
Hmm.
your mind, now it's time to live for the benefit of others and dedicate your life as Jesus did to doing the Creator's will, to following God's will. And that to me, that's the full revelation of his unconditional, unselfish love to other human beings. That if you do that, God's going to give you the best way, the inspiration, the power to love others and serve them effectively. Because the religion of Jesus is a religion of self-forgetful service, not endless introspection. It's serving others, which he did, and that's the full meaning of I think, the death on the cross.
Thanks for that explanation and the way that you put it on the love of God and what the cross represents. And I think this is very important because we all, in some point, have said, I'm bearing a cross, or the cross I have to bear, and I think that, one of the things that we've understand, or at least I've understood from life, is that life isn't just, a walk in the park. Life has a lot of difficulties. Life has a lot of growth that you have to, you were just saying that you have to hunger for that, and you have to be willing, and you have to be truthful, and you have to be, yeah, you have to cut the BS with yourself. You have to be, the more sincere you are with yourself, the more you're gonna grow. But that's something that I've always, well, not always, but as I've gotten older, come to appreciate about the cross. About the sacrifices and the struggles. That we have to go, like Jesus did, from. Uh, Pilate's is, I think that's where they started the procession all the way to his crucifixion. He carried that cross, and he did it in a way where, he knew his fate. So I really like that, because you can take the strength of Jesus in that moment, and use them for those difficult times in your life, and it's like magic, and that has happened to me. Your suffering, it doesn't disappear, but it soothes. There's a soothing in there that really happens. I don't know if I'm making sense, or if you've experienced something like this, Chris.
No, yeah, and that's going to be a segue into the Spirit of Truth section. But that's a great segue. You designed this podcast well today. But remember, I get back to, if it's all our assumption of God. If you assume that God is more than you can imagine, a loving divine parent, you might not understand why bad things happen to people sometimes, constantly, why you go through pain and suffering in your life, etc. If you can just trust in the inner experience, then
Yeah.
whatever you're facing, God is going to remove all of your fear, all of your anxiety, all of your lack of energy. You will be energized and confident. Now, that doesn't mean that if you're on medication or you're getting psychiatric help that you should get rid of that. No. That's not
Yeah.
what we're saying, but,
Yeah.
add to it the experience of God, and feel the joy of growth, because growth can only be experienced when you are 100% giving yourself to the process in partnership with God, and forgetting yourself. I've heard a saying of, it's out of the Urantia book. I'm going to paraphrase, but it's
Please.
basically, you can do as many things. You can do many things as easily as one if you leave yourself out. If you're self-forgetful, if you're not constantly thinking about, ooh, can I do this? Ooh, what's going to happen if I do this? What does this mean for my life? They say it's the self-involvement that exhausts you, not the effort. So, and Jesus was the exemplification of that. Just
That
completely
is so true,
self-forgetful.
Chris.
Yeah.
That is so true. When you do things, regardless and without looking for merit, or recognition or whatnot, you do it lovingly, and you don't even, it's not even hard. It comes easily. Like you said, it's when you try to get that self-aggrandizement, or benefit for you, that it makes it difficult, and you try to, I don't know, it's like energy you're trying to pull to yourself that you can't, right?
I love it. Yeah. But a lot of it is just anxiety. Many times in your life, you're like, how am I going to get all that done? How am I going to get it done? Is it going to be good? What are people going to think about it? It's all based on fear and ego. Once you allow yourself to be in the consciousness of God, you're at a new vibration, and you are above that basic animal instinct. And that's what de-energizes you. If you can stay at the God level, then you can truly forget yourself.
Yeah, and anything, and it's like miracles. Things start to happen without you really,
Mhm.
pushing them, or it just falls into a
Hmm.
sequence, or into a, I want to say, a melody of the universe.
Hmm.
You start playing the melody of the universe, instead of going against it, and suddenly everything starts to sound better.
I love that's beautiful. That's really nice. Well, again, it gets back to our conception of God. Well, Jesus lived his life this way, obviously. His sole technique was to immerse himself in God, the Father, and do exactly what God wanted him to do. And that was it. Absolute, total trust of a child, getting back to those gospel essentials, total faith. That's it. And then just going forward to trust that, you know, the creator has a plan for the entire universe, and you were created to be part of that. You have your own little plan that he has for you. You have unique gifts, talents, situation in life, all of that. And that's all to be part of that plan. So it's already been laid out. So like you said, if we're off track, if we're in an area that we shouldn't be in, then that means that we're not over here where we're going to get what we need, because it's all been arranged. Everything has already been arranged. It's just
Exactly.
when we get there. I'm going over here, and then I get over here and I think, that's amazing. Wow, I got just what I needed at the right moment. Well, maybe I could have been there 5 years ago. I don't know, but that path is still.
That's true. That's
And the
true.
other thing is, the Father loves us so much and has such an amazing destiny that everything you will need for eternity has already been arranged. Everything.
That's beautiful, because it becomes a matter of discovering that person that you are, that being, not even person, that being, universal and eternal being that you're discovering. And that's, that's why when you say what's God's will, that is God's will. When you suddenly realize that the best thing that you can do is to follow his will, because that will transform you and perfect you. And that's when you start to discover these attributes. And like you're saying, everything was laid out. That's when you start to discover this path, and you start living this path.
Beautiful. I saw something on Facebook, and it was a posting one of my friends had. And on one side, it had a flower, and it says, plans you make for your life. And it's just one flower. And then on the other side, it had many, many, many flowers that says God's plan for you. And it's true. It's just everything that you can't imagine what is there. And it doesn't mean that we are slaves. It doesn't mean that we're robots. So this whole thing about, a lot of people have great resistance to the idea that we have to follow the will of God. If you're not following the will of God, what are you doing? You're going with your limited human knowledge, your instincts, your desires purely, and that's human. But God does have a plan for you, and I think sometimes that will of God is very, very specific. Like, I want you to become a salesman. I don't know. I want you to become a nurse. Or it could be very general. I want you to be a better person. I want you to be kinder. It's just the adventure of discovering that.
But it is an adventure, and I think that's the key. And you touched, closing this segment and going into the next one, which I think is very important, because you were saying about the hunger that we have to have in order to find truth, in order to do this. I mean, there was I'm also paraphrasing, but there's a saying, that the seas or the depths of the ocean cannot be explored from the safety of the shore. You have to go into the abyss, into far away from land that you don't see it, and you have to trust in God, and you have to deposit that trust. We do have these spirits among us. We do have the divine within, the spirit of God the Father within us. But there is also the spirit that Jesus left us, which is the spirit of truth. When Jesus left, he didn't leave us alone. He gave us the spirit of truth, a living guide that personalizes his teachings for every soul. In this segment, we'll explore how this keeps Jesus alive, relevant, and closer than ever. So, Chris, what is the spirit of truth? Who is the spirit of truth? And why? Remember from the Gospels when I was in Sunday school that he always said that he was going to give us a gift. So what can you tell us about this?
Before I give you what I think the answer is, I have a question for everybody, and that is, if you're a lover of Jesus, which you probably are, wouldn't it be amazing to have been there with him during that time? Right? And I think we'd all say, of course, it would be wonderful. Wouldn't it be great to have him every day?
Yes,
you can.
It is.
You can. So what is the spirit of truth? The spirit of truth is like Jesus in every way except for his physical body. The spirit of truth is the individual projection of the person of Jesus inside your mind. I'll say it again. The spirit of truth is like Jesus in every way except for his physical body. So Jesus said he would be with us. Everyone thinks about, oh, when is the second coming? When is the second coming? In a sense,
He is with
it
us.
happened. In fact, the apostles made more spiritual progress with that spiritual truth in a matter of months than they did with all the years with Jesus, because the Spirit of truth also helps you recognize truth. Because, right, the truth will set you free. And what truth are you recognizing? You are recognizing the same truths that the Father taught Jesus. Jesus is just showing those to you. One of the primary missions of Jesus was as a spiritual teacher to liberate us. He continues to be the inner teacher, is the Spirit of truth. The Spirit of truth helps you to recognize truth, as John said in his writings. It helps the believer to recognize all truth, but it also helps you to express that truth in your own personal way, in your own time, and in the context. The Spirit of truth helps you interpret the original teachings of Jesus for your time and place. The truths that Jesus taught are eternal. That will never change. But the way that you live the truths, the way that you express love and give love as he did, we learned in earlier segment, right, about the meaning of the death on the cross, the way you express that truth in your time is different for you. That's what the Spirit of truth does. It provides, and when you are immersed in the very presence of the cosmic Christ, now we're talking about the cosmic Christ, not just Jesus of Nazareth. You are literally being held in a deep, deep embrace from Christ, the cosmic Christ, the resurrected Jesus. You're being held with all that cosmic energy and love and vision, everything. The Spirit of truth also gives you the confidence and motivation and joy to go forward and express your truth. It's the Spirit of truth is, again, those points: liberating, inspiring your mind, illuminating your darkened human intellect, healing your soul, freeing your mind of fear, anxiety.
From what I understand, and it's quite hard, especially when you think of Jesus and you think of the person, the personality itself. How can his spirit be in us? Because that's what it is. The Spirit of truth is a fragment of Jesus. It's part of Jesus. It moves through Jesus, and it gives us that compass, let's say, that North Star into what is truth. So how does that, trying to fathom that, and I remember, from Sunday school that I think it was in Pentecost that, he was going to pour his soul or his spirit on us. Is that the same thing? Are we talking about this? Is that what happened in Pentecost, or can you explain a little bit more?
That's exactly what happened at Pentecost. So he said that I'm going to send a new Spirit helper once I ascend to the Father. So after he resurrected himself, he traveled directly to paradise.
Okay.
Stood face to face with the Father, was approved by the Father, and then he sent his Spirit out, and that's what they experienced in that upper chamber. And then they rushed out to the temple in Jerusalem with total courage, joy, confidence, and went forward from there.
And this is really beautiful, in a way, when Jesus ascended to paradise, and we see that, and that's something when I was young, when he's resurrected, I said, well, why didn't he didn't he stay with his friends, if he was always already resurrected? He stood here, or he stayed here, because he was transitioning actually to his full spiritual self. So every it was a progression, but eventually his path was not here on earth, it was in heaven. So I like this part that he releases himself through his sacrifice and his resurrection, and now he's everywhere. It's not only his spirit in his body, but now is the Spirit of truth and his spirit, which is that, invades every person in this world, in this earth, and beyond our planet. So isn't that beautiful? Just how Jesus just kind of took everything into him, his whole universe.
Yeah, it's pretty profound. And I would encourage us not to think of it as a sacrifice, but a devotion of his entire life. It wasn't just those, that pain, those painful, that painful day or couple days of the trial and so forth. at the end, but just the devotion of a total life. And yeah, it's amazing. And all of the wisdom, everything that he gained, it's been, it has been spread out to people, beyond this planet. It's good to, I think, in thinking about Jesus again, a new perspective, we can't think of Jesus as the way people thought about him in the first century or in medieval times or even in this 18th, 19th centuries, maybe even the 20th century. You have to understand that he is a cosmic divine being. He is our Son of God. He's a cosmic being. So he has incredible, almost unlimited creative power for planets, stars, gas clouds, you name it, and all the beings in that. So it's more amazing than we think. It isn't, and a being like that coming here, experiencing our life, revealing man to God and God to man, and even man to himself. It's pretty profound. Pretty profound. And all of that wisdom, what we can handle, he's going to give us. He's not withholding all of that. You do not, you don't have to join a particular church. You don't have to attend a certain religion. He gives it freely to people who have faith. And that faith means you're sincere and you're hungering for the truth. It's there.
Yeah. And this is very important, Chris, that what you're saying, the way that we experience Jesus and the way that we can relate to Jesus. And you said something very important, that we don't have to go through a church. I mean, the churches are there and they can serve us and they point the way. And like I've always said, I do not deny my Catholic roots and my upbringing. It did give me the scaffolding, but it does not limit me to go to have that religious ceremony in order to get closer to God. And this is something that I've said many times, and I'm going to say it again. I got to a point when I was probably 20, 21 years old in Mass in the church, that I suddenly realized that a lot of people were there not to get closer to God, but to get far away from the devil, because the church tells you the commandments. If you go once a week to church, then you got you got that written off and you can go to heaven. But I didn't want that. I really wanted to experience God. So it got to a point where I bid my adieus to the church and said, what? And I started my path. Then I got back to rediscovering Jesus through the Urantia book and to understanding his full self, his full potential, not just a glimpse of him. And that's when I realized the enormity of who he is. And how can we, and we were saying the path, how can somebody that's listening to us and say, what, I find these gaps and I see that, maybe through an institutional religion, I've finished the course, but I want to continue that course. What can somebody do in order to get closer to Jesus without necessarily having to go to a church?
Follow the original teachings of Jesus. And I just want to say something about churches. I belong to a progressive church in my community. It's important. They're valuable. Now, they're humans. They make mistakes. Some churches have done horrific things, but every human institution is like that, where you're concentrating power and wealth. They all behave the same way, but there's still great value, and you can bring good things to your community. And I'm very thankful for my upbringing, but God wants me to go further. So I think it's, again, just being honest with yourself. Do you trust God? That's the first step. How much do you trust God? And if you really want to go on the adventure of discovery with God, you have to be willing to make God the priority. What God says, not what any human says or any church or institution, political party, your spouse. It's what Jesus talked about, counting the cost. What are you willing to give? And when you give all you have to God, God makes you more than you are. It's that wholehearted devotion. So the first thing is, I think, it's what Jesus taught. It's, are you truly sincere? And are you in wanting to experience God? And then the second thing, are you hungering for the truth? And if you are, that comprises your faith. So it's, how do you get to know Jesus?
Yeah.
It's accepting the experience you're already having inside. That's faith. Faith, acceptance. There's a presence of God there. Spend more time with it, accept it, and then start talking to God. Have a conversation. Very deliberately sit down every day at some time or spontaneously, but you make some good time for God and you talk to Jesus directly. Then you pour your heart out, whatever is in your heart. If you're angry, confused, whatever it is, you pour your heart out till you are absolutely exhausted and then sit quietly. Listen
Magic happens.
and do it again, just like any relationship. And it's going to be difficult at first. You'll get distracted. We know that. That just happens. But gradually, you'll get better at it and you will start to feel love. You'll start to feel the embrace. And that is literally the presence of the Master, of a cosmic Christ coming inside you and actually holding your soul, infusing your mind and holding your soul. And that is the spirit of truth we've been talking about. So if you come in just wanting to know more truth and grow, that's great. But then the other thing is, how do you get closer to Jesus is, following his teachings, which is to devote yourself completely to the will of the Father. So when you go out and you start your day, I do this now. I take some time with Jesus. I pray for other people intensely. And then at the end, I pray for myself. I listen. What have you got to say to me? And I spend time with the Father. And then when I go into my day, now I'm ready. And, there's something the Urantia Book teaches, is that if your mind is failing you, if you've got too much anxiety, whatever, just ask for it to be infused or replaced with the mind of Christ. And he
That
will
is
change
beautiful.
it.
Yeah.
He will change it all.
Yeah, and that's so important, Chris. What you were saying, that this happens in everyday life. It doesn't. I mean, one of the things that we have to really stress here, and part of what the divine within is how to live in this world that that is so secular, so materialistic, so
Yeah.
sometimes godless, that we have to go beyond that. We have to go and I don't know, but maybe it's because I've been practicing and this for maybe the last 20 years, but I do the same thing as you do, that you live and you're communing with God, and it gets to a point where you're having this small talk where everything that you do in life, you have the acknowledgement of God, or at least say, okay, so this, and you have a living presence there. I don't know if that happens to you, but I feel him with me, in everything that I do. But you have to, and it takes time, like anything. It's in practice in order for you to get to that communion, I believe.
Yeah, exactly right. And the Urantia Book points out that the secret to Jesus' life, to this incredible alignment to the will of God, was his unbroken communion with the Father. So he not only went, he'd go off in the morning and probably in the evening, I don't know, but he probably spent a considerable amount of time with God every day. I won't say how long, but he would go out and get completely infused and held by the Father, and he would go out through his entire day. And we can do the same thing with Jesus, and it makes all the difference in the world. It's just, there's no, and we have to, he's not. There's a quote from the Urantia Book. I'm going to paraphrase it, but it says something like, Jesus did not say, "Come to me, all who are indolent and are dreamers." Right? What he
It
did
was the
say is,
opposite.
"Come to me, all who labor, and I will give you rest." Or let me just say it another way: "Come to me when you trust and work your butt off, and I'll give you rest." And it's what we talked about doing many things and forgetting yourself. So it's when you let go, when you don't think about your fear, your anxiety, the benefits it'll bring to you, or how other people will think, or the repercussions, when you just do the thing, then you have become self-forgetful. You've given God all you can. And then that's when actual growth occurs through tremendous exertion, but
Transformation. It's a
joyful
trans.
exertion.
Yeah, and that's so beautiful, and just we're gonna be wrapping up in a minute, but that transformation is so good. It's not just fixing the broken; it's transforming the broken, I believe.
It is. That's a beautiful thing. It's, you don't grow by saying, I'm not going to do this bad habit anymore. I'm not going to do this. I'm not going to do that. I'm not going to do that. You grow by replacing each of those weaknesses with strength, and that light will crowd out the darkness and you will grow. That was exactly how Jesus
Yeah.
ministered to people. He didn't go in and tear down their beliefs. He extended them and illuminated them. So the light naturally eliminated that darkness. And that's what growth is about. And it's an absolute eternal progress. Whatever personal transformation you think is impossible, if you think, oh, I can't do that, oh, I can't change in that way, oh, I can't get rid of that bad habit, you haven't experienced the full embrace of the Father and Jesus being held. And when you do that, you will be able to make some progress, maybe dramatic progress, but you'll be able to make progress, and you'll feel real joy.
Definitely, definitely, yeah, and it's being in that communion with the mind of Christ, like you were saying, substituting your mortal or imperfect mind to that of God, and I think that's the key. Well, thanks a lot, Chris. Can you now tell us a bit about your podcast and your ministry to our guests? I mean, to our audience.
Sure. Yeah. It's based on this new revelation, the Urantia Book. I've been reading it for 45 years. I found it in high school in 1980, and I've been studying the life of Jesus in that book, 777 pages of it, trying to live it. And it's astounding. It's beautiful, and it is an absolute extension and amplification and glorification of Jesus like you cannot imagine. So over the years, I realized that that's really the key. Although our focus should be to worship and do the will of God, the will of the Father, that was the religion of Jesus. He didn't say, worship me. It's about the Father. So my work is about revealing who Jesus was and his original teachings. That's it, pure and simple, based on part 4 of the Urantia Book. So I've started a new. I wrote a book called Jesus Without Christianity. You can find it on Amazon. It's not an attack on Christianity. It's just saying, what were the original teachings? What do we do without a church structure? How can we go forward? The new podcast series is called The New Revelation of Jesus, the Pre-Christian Angelic Records. And you can find that on my YouTube channel, but you can get to everything at findmynewlife.com. You can find there are links in the upper left where you can go to the YouTube channel. That's the whole series. I'm going to go through the entire life of Jesus.
And anybody that's watching this, we have the links
Yep.
below that you can go and visit Chris. I really encourage you to do this because Chris, that's why I invited him over here. He's the Jesus expert. He's been devoting a lot of his time on this, so he's got a lot of experience, a lot of wisdom, and I really enjoy talking about Jesus with Chris. It just makes it grander all the times. Please visit him. I think that his podcasts are getting to the point to what you have to know or understand about Jesus, and it's very thorough. So please visit Chris. And before we close off and we say goodbye, Chris, any remarks, anything else you wanted to add?
Yeah, and that's, wherever you are spiritually, thank you for listening today, and thank you if you're going to go take a look at my work as well. But just trust God. That's it. Don't automatically trust humans. God will take care of you, whatever your faith tradition. But please keep an open mind that Jesus is a revelation of the Father, and that this new book, the Urantia Book, this new revelation might be the answer to all of your prayers for more information about Jesus. The very thing that maybe you've been asking for is in that book, and give it a chance and you will be rewarded. You will be absolutely rewarded, whether you're a spiritual person or not. You're going to be rewarded with extensive, incredible, inspiring, beautiful quotations from Jesus and so forth. The information in that book is probably, there's probably, I don't know, 40, 80 pages in the Gospels if you cross-reference them altogether. The Urantia Book has 777. It's an incredible revelation of who he was. Anyway, but it's been a great pleasure. I wish you the best on your spiritual journey.
No, thanks a lot, Chris, and thanks for participating on this podcast. We really enjoy your insights and helping us redefine Jesus, which I think is the important part of this podcast, this program in itself. So, to everybody that's watching us, thank you for participating. Thank you for listening. Like I've always said, if only subscribe if you really mean to. Remember to also hit the apart from the subscribe, hit the notice button so you can know when a new episode is coming out. And if you like it, also tell people about it. Tell them that there's a bunch of people in the Divine Within podcast talking about interesting things. Maybe they will come to like it and do some service for them. So thank you, Chris. Just to close off this program, a few words I wanted to say is that redefining Jesus doesn't replace the gospel; it expands it. His mission was bigger than than his sacrifice. His cross was love in action, and the Spirit of truth is still with us now. Thanks, Chris, once again for seeing or helping us see Jesus with fresh eyes. And thanks, listeners. May this mission inspire you, His love sustain you, and His Spirit guide your path. I'm Santiago Kneeland. This is the Divine Within. Take care and carpe diem.
On the Divine Within podcast, we'll share real conversations to help you find a personal connection with God. My goal is to support your faith, growth, and journey toward discovering the divine within yourself. Join us to deepen your faith and spiritual journey.